really care about my subject. I'm a practicing artist, and I'm trying to share my passion and love for the subject with them. Thanks for the great wine.
Okay, you're welcome. Coming to you from beautiful Los Angeles, California, welcome to Wine Press with Jess, a new show about wine appreciation, as well as other topics related to cultivating tips or insights for having a flourishing life, enhancing relationships, and igniting hope to make the world a better place. In this episode, I interview Vanessa Madrid. She's an art professor. She teaches design, drawing, and art theory at various colleges and institutions around in the Southern California area. As a sculptor and painter, her current work is to investigate the vulnerabilities of the body, the psyche, along with states of transition in life. Join me as I interview Vanessa Madrid at the Angels Gate Cultural Center and take a glass of wine and enjoy the view of the beautiful California ocean near San Pedro. According to the artist Salvador Dali, great wine requires a madman to grow the wine, a wise man to watch over it, a lucid poet to make it, and a lover to drink it. In many respects, making great wine is analogous. It's an analogous art form to that of sculpting clay, crafting pictures that highlight the beauty of the human body or human activities, along with painting beautiful images and landscapes. Artwork has an affinity with great wine in that they connect the eyes with a sense of longing and transcendence. The astronomer Galileo once remarked, "Wine is sunlight held together by water." One thing that distinguishes works of art from ordinary objects is that artworks function as signs, archetypal signs, as the Greek used to say, that point us to the longing, transcendence, and the light of a purer, more perfect creation, a new dawn, a new hope, a new opportunity and possibility. So this is Jess Knopf. Join with me for this episode on an existential quest to explore the theme of art and transcendence from a winemaking perspective. As in so many artistic areas of life, people find their inspiration in their cultural upbringing. And in the first aspect of my interview with Vanessa, she shares her love for Star Wars as a motivating kind of backdrop, archetype in her life.
I went to every movie as it came out, saw it multiple times, and that image of the Death Star and the officers' uniforms, it really stuck with me. So there came a point when I wanted to shift my work from more biomorphic themes to something that was a little bit more shape-based and a little bit more geometric. And that's when I started making these Death Star pieces. I kept thinking about that shape, that moon-like shape, and to me the circle or the sphere is very elemental, and I'm really interested in elemental anything, elemental in terms of just things distilled down so far that they cannot be distilled down any further.
So while Vanessa is a big Star Wars fan, I, on the other hand, am a Star Trek fan. And so I was connecting with her thoughts on the image of Star Wars with my reflection on the Star Trek series. In particular, there's an episode in Nemesis, the movie, that wasn't actually put in the movie, but it talks about wine appreciation. And it just goes to show how art and wine kind of have similar affinities in looking at the background of what influences artistic expression.
You know, they say a vintner's history is in every glass. The soil he came from, his past, his hopes for the future. So, To the future.
To the future.
So you're tasting some of my kinship wine.
Yes.
Yes, and we've had it before at your sister. I think it was your sister's place.
My sister's.
Sister's place, and everybody loved it, along with the Pinot Noir and the Zinfandel. And I shared with the group before at the wine tasting that wine is made through the grapes being crushed. There's a crushing process, and in fact, I had a label many years back with my Zinfandel that the grapes are made into wine, and out of every crushing experience, something good can happen. In your artwork, and you've done artwork, you've done painting, design, drawing, and you've actually taught art theory. And as a sculptor and painter, your current work is to look and to kind of examine, even investigate the vulnerabilities of the body, the psyche, which is the Greek word for soul, and to look at states of transition. So tell us a little bit about how that works for you, maybe along that thought of the crushingness of life.
For me, what is interesting as an artist is what is unique or interesting about a person, an experience, a place. So the beauty is not necessarily what I'm drawn towards in an object or person or a place. It's the things that are a little bit awkward, as I'm an awkward person sometimes, and I find that really interesting. So as far as the crushing or that crushing experience, for me, that has definitely been health challenges. So for me, I have used that specifically in my artwork.
This is your rainbow. So tell us why you chose the colors of the rainbow. You have black on the outside. What does that mean to you?
You know, with each artwork, it is different. All of my artworks come from a question, and that question is, what if? So I might be thinking about my experiences of a place, or my body in a place, but this particular one, I was thinking about, what if the rainbow was a cave?
Okay.
And then the cave became more of a hairdo. So for me, there's that joyful juxtaposition, and I'm hoping that my work is abstract enough so it doesn't tell you exactly what it is. There's enough room for you to put your own thoughts into it and derive your own meaning.
Okay, and I noticed that the colors, now there's different colors for the rainbow itself.
Right.
The spectrum of light has three primary colors: red, green, and blue. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's right. But in painting you have different colors.
Right. So as an educator, I teach color theory every semester. So I teach about the pigment color system and the light color system, and I don't always want to follow exactly the rainbow, or I don't necessarily want to follow the rules of science. I want to tell my own story, and sometimes that is seen through which colors I put next to each other.
So how does that work for you? What's the message you're trying to communicate with yellow, white, pink? I mean, there's layers of meaning here.
Well, in this particular painting, there was a pre-existing rainbow that was on there that got covered over and scraped through.
Okay.
So it's not single colors. And this was actually a pretty new development in my work. Most of the time I like my colors to be very contained. And this one with the layering, I found it to be really freeing to be able to show not just one color, but multiple colors. So maybe before it was pink, it was orange and green and blue. And I love that the color is transitioning. And as you mentioned earlier, transitions are a really interesting part of life, from getting older, that process from birth to decay, the process of imploding or exploding. And I love that in my work, I can't really tell exactly what's happening.
Now, in the rainbow itself, the cave is a metaphor for maybe the birthing process into a new life? perhaps?
So many metaphors.
Yeah, maybe that would be one metaphor that I see, kind of this birthing process that you're in this transition from darkness into light, into a tapestry of meaning. Each color perhaps represents something that you've gone through in your journeys.
And that's when I know the work is good. When I can see it as a cave, and I can see that cave as multiple things.
Right.
It is the soul, it's the mind, it's the spiritual journey, it's a hairdo on top.
I guess you could. Yeah.
That's when I see multiple things, that's when I know that's good.
Yeah, because they have, in literature, like Shakespeare has, the people who are the scholars believe there's multiple levels of meaning, and so in art too, that there can be multiple layers. And in wine appreciation, you can smell the wine right away, and then you savor it, and then as time goes on, why different flavors come out, you volatilize the esters in wine, and the different flavors come out, and there's a whole different meaning as the time of wine tasting goes on. Now, the same thing with art, subject-object, distinctions, and how you're as an artist, you convey what you want, but the recipient, the person who's viewing it, interprets the art with their own glasses of meaning too, so they reflect on their meaning that they've gone through.
Exactly, and that is what's interesting about art to me, or the art that I like, is the art that leaves room for me, rather than telling me exactly what it is.
So there's a difference, I suppose, between a craft, like you could make a wooden stool or a table or something like that, versus an artistic expression. And the artistic expression. Go ahead. You're a professor of art, so you better
I think
share with us
a lot of those boundaries are blurring.
Okay.
I think that those distinctions between fine art and craft or commercial art, I think that high-low distinction really is becoming much more fluid.
Okay.
There are lots of fine artists that are dabbling in more functional art or commercial art, and vice versa.
Okay. So now you wrote on your website that the essential components of humanness as evidence of the journey of living beings towards transcendence are the undercurrents running through your work. Can you unpack that a little bit? A little bit, yeah?
Well, my work being abstract, I think that my goal is to create something that has something human in transition, and there's an eminence in my work. So in these pieces, it's really the rainbow that you're seeing, distinct kind of fat stripes of color. But in some of my other pieces, the rainbow might only be one or two colors, and that really is more like an energetic eminence coming from the piece, and from me and from you.
So while Vanessa had many more works of art, very interesting type designs and so forth, I was kind of limited by time in my interview. So I cut it short. We headed out to where the ocean was to have a final wrap up. It's a little bit windy, so it's a little bit harder to kind of grasp what's going on. But I asked the question about wine and art in the similarity and dissimilarity of its aging. So, for example, a Pinot Noir will age beneficially for a few years, and then it'll just kind of bump along and then actually not age so well as the years go by. And then the thought is that art itself might be kind of culturally bound, or have a cultural context where it's limited in terms of its impact in life. And so we explored that in the final interview process. What do you think about that concept of art and its longevity?
Well, this is a conversation that a lot of artists are having right now. Should their art outlast them? Should their art continue after they are gone? And some of my favorite art is made out of materials that decomposes. Some of my favorite artists are working with rocks and stones and flowers and leaves and ice, and their art is a photograph of that piece, and that's all that remains. And I think that that's something that all artists need to think about. Should their art outlast them? Now, as a collector, of course, you want that art to retain its value and to increase in value. But as an artist, I think we need to think about the materials that we're using and what is the lifespan of our work.
So in the midst of the blustering wind, I asked Vanessa, what's next?
love the work I'm doing right now, but I can't wait to get to that next body of work. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I think it's probably going to get back to sculpture, and I'm probably going to switch media again. So I'm excited to see where I go.
Okay, now you get your own commercial here, so your works are on sale anywhere or not?
People can contact me through my website, which is vanessamadrid.com, but email really is the best.
Okay, so we can keep in touch with you, and thank you so much for taking the time, Vanessa.
Sure.
And for being here on Wine Press with Just, and kind of talk about wine and, well, in this case, more art appreciation and looking at the dynamics of that.
Thanks for the great wine.
Okay, you're welcome.
Instrumental music was done by Easy Ruckus, Something in the Wine. And that love song was done by Amanzi from Nigeria, Fine Wine. Such a great love.